Music in the air can be heard wherever you go. Every tweet of me can conceivably be a song you know. Music in the air can be heard all over the town. Every tweet of a bird is an often unheard melodic sound. Happened to pass your doorway, gave you a buzz, that's all. Lately I've thought lots about you, so I thought I'd pay a social call. Do you recall the old days? We used to have a ball. Not that I'm lonesome without you, I just thought I'd pay a social call. I'd lie and say that things are just swell, but to tell the truth, I haven't been too well. If you should try and kiss me, I promise that I won't stall. Maybe we'll get back together, starting with this incidental, elemental, simple social call. Ba-boo-ya-da-boo-wee, ba-ya-da-ba-dee-doo-dee-ah-bee-da, bee-da-bee-doo-bee-da-doo-bee-da, ba-boo-da-da-da-dee, ba-boo-dee-dee-doo, bee-oo-bee-boo-bee, ba-ya-da-ba-do-do-do-la-do-la-la-la-la-do-do, ba-boo-da-da-da-let-let-let-let-dee-doo-dee-doo, ba-boo-ba-ya-ba-boo-ba-ya-do, ba-boo-da-da-boo-wee, ba-bee-dee-dee-doo-da-da-da-da-da-do, bee-ba-ba-ba, bee-ba-da-da, ba-ya-do, ba-do-da-dee-doo-da, ba-do-dee-dee-doo, bee-oh-bee-da, wee-ba-ya-da-ba-wo-lee, ba-do-lee-da-lee-da, bee-oo-da-doo-da-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee, ba-dee-dee-dee, bee-ya-do-ba-boo-wee. For Brandon McCune. Happened to pass your doorstep, I gave you a buzz, that's all. Lately I've thought lots about you, so I thought I'd pay a social call. Do you recall the old days? We used to have a ball. Not that I'm lonesome without you, I just thought I'd pay a social call. I'd lie and say things are just swell, but to tell the truth, I haven't been too well. If you should try and kiss me, I promise that I won't stall. Maybe we'll get back together, starting with this incidental, elemental, simple social call. Social call. Thank you so much. Thank you. Welcome to this celebration here at the Wayne Public Library. This is so wonderful to be back here. Of course, I went to William Patterson. I didn't think, she didn't mention that, right? Yes, I graduated from William Patterson. Thank you. And I came from very far away to do that. I actually am from Fort Lauderdale. I was going to school at University of Miami, and I hated it. I just did not like all that sunshine and smiling people. I was a jazz musician, for God's sakes. So I had auditioned for the new school at Manhattan School of Music, and they kept losing my paperwork at the new school. They were like, "Yeah, man, I don't know, we can't find your stuff, man." And anyway, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it there. I'm like a little too type A for that school. And then I was just sitting in the lobby at University of Miami, and somebody said, "Hey, man, my friend's cousin's going to the school William Patterson up in New Jersey. You should check it out." And I did, and I got in, and I came up, and I met my teacher, Nancy Morano, it was her first year there at William Patterson, and Dr. Dempsey, who's here with us today, and that whole experience just changed my life for the better. And to be back here at the Wayne Public Library, enjoying these wonderful relationships that have shaped my life is really special to me. So happy to be back. Thank you, Patty, for inviting me. So, yeah, that was an unfortunate time to do that talking because I have a lot of talking to tell you about this story of this show right now. So I'm going to sit in Noal's chair. But but then you guys can't see me. Okay, hi again. It's me. So years ago, after William Patterson, but still years ago, like 2006, I was living in Toronto, and I played at the Art of Jazz Festival. Also headlining that festival was the wonderful Jon Hendricks. And I got to meet him and sing near him and stuff. And he said, "Hey, I have a lot of unpublished lyrics, and nobody's sung them before. Maybe you could sing them." And I said, "Yes, I would love to sing them." He said, "Yeah, well, come to Toledo and check them out." I said, "Okay, I'm in," right? And so I guess we planned a date, or maybe I called him. And anyway, I took a Greyhound bus from Toronto to Toledo, and he had forgotten that I was coming. And he didn't have time to hang out with me and show me his stuff, so I had to just... that's when I made up the saying, "Toledo, it's a destination." Anyway, I went there for lunch. I went right back to Toronto, and then he said, "You have to make plans with my wife if you want to actually get me in when I'm here." So I made the plans with his wife, and I did go down another month later, and he gave me all these lyric sheets to a bunch of tunes. And the person whose tunes he had the most of these unpublished lyrics to was Gigi Gryce. And so I had hoped, along the way that I meant to do an album of John's lyrics, but I found out he didn't actually write the lyrics to Joy Spring that I love. That was written by a woman who lives in Brooklyn. And when I found that out, I was like, okay, I don't need to do that project. But then I had these sheets. Fast forward many years, I was teaching briefly at William Patterson, and we were all at Dizzy's Club and hearing the big band play at Dizzy's Club. And I got introduced that night to Noal Cohen. And I told Noal about this. We somehow discovered that he's the Gigi Gryce guy. And I said, "Oh, I have all these unpublished lyrics from Jon Hendricks." And he said, "There's a lot of other lyrics too." And he said, there's also some songs that really should have lyrics. And he gave me a thumb drive with all this stuff on it. And then and then I sat on that for a few years. And then finally, last year, I had a concert at my home. I live at West Beth, a wonderful artist housing building in New York, and we have a concert series there. And the goal is to try to do something that you wouldn't usually do on your regular gig. And I said, this is it. It's January, and I'm booking this for August. Certainly in 8 months, I can get my act together and get this music that I've been wanting to do for so many years together. So we did it, and we did that first performance in August last year, and it was really great. And Noal came out to West Beth and did the talk that he's going to share with you today. And then we did a couple more gigs, and now we have more gigs this year because it's Gigi Gryce's centennial this year. So I'm going to let Noal tell you more about that. But I don't want to tell you how I met Noal and my story about Jon Hendricks. So there we go. Yeah. And this is a lyric by Jon Hendricks to Gigi Gryce's song, Reminiscing. When quiet night falls all around me and unforgotten memories surround me, here by the fire, warm as the kiss I still desire. I'm reminiscing, and he's close to me once more. I feel his touch and hear his laughter, just as I'm sure I will forever after. I see his face, sweet as the thrill of his embrace. I'm reminiscing, and he's close to me once more. Though in these precious days we go our separate ways, caught in the trick fate plays on some who love. They say love stories all have happy endings, and reminisce and dream of this here in a mood of tender feeling. I cry the tears I'm weary of concealing, and through the pain left by the one I loved in vain, I'm reminiscing, and he's close to me again. Though in these desperate days we go our separate ways, caught in the trick fate plays on some who love. They say love stories all have happy endings, and reminisce and dream of this here in a mood of tender feeling. I cry the tears I'm weary of concealing, and through the pain left by the one I loved in vain, I'm reminiscing, and he's close to me again. Thank you. All right, I'd like to bring up Noal Cohen to introduce you to Gigi Gryce.
So my journey with Gigi Gryce goes back over 70 years, if you can believe that. He came on the scene about the same time that I got into jazz in the early 1950s. Now, the book that was mentioned is this book right here. That story goes back about 30 years. Right after I retired from my day job, I started to work on this. And why was that? Because I really like Gigi Gryce's music. And you just heard in those two songs the beautiful melodicism of his writing and the lyricism, and it just stuck with me. So I wanted to try to enhance his profile because he wasn't really that well known. In fact, I doubt that many of you in the audience know who Gigi Gryce is or have heard his music. So, well, let me start by saying that if you look at Gigi Gryce's Wikipedia page, there are 44 references, and 39 of them are our book. So there isn't a whole lot out there about Gigi Gryce. There's a few articles about him over the years. And there's various reasons for that. One of the reasons is he was kind of a strange guy. He was very secretive, and he was kind of a loner. And in the 1950s, when he emerged along with people like Clifford Brown, Benny Golson, Horace Silver, Art Farmer. These were all his close friends. But he kind of stood out. He had a lot of interests that other people didn't share, like interest in things like copyright and protecting your music and not being ripped off. And later on, I'll tell you about how that exactly happened, that unfortunately. And so he never attained the fame that these other people that came along about the same time that were his friends. Randy Weston was another one. He never attained the same fame that they did. And another reason was that his career basically ended after 8 years. He was only around for about 8 years, not even a decade. About 1962, he literally disappeared. And I'll come back to that. It's a fascinating story. And I don't think we have all the details of it even now, but we did our best to find out. And there's a third reason why Gigi isn't well known. He didn't like to travel. He was basically, he moved to New York in 1954, and he basically worked out of New York. And for example, he had a quintet with Art Farmer from 1954 to 1956. And Art Farmer told me when I interviewed him that he had to break up with Gigi because Gigi wouldn't go out of town. He just didn't like to travel. He hated flying, and he never owned a car. He never drove. So that, when you think about it, a musician's life, that's a serious, problem. So those are some of the factors that have conspired to keep him from being as more famous than he was. So just going back to the beginning, Gigi came from Pensacola, Florida, the Deep South, born 100 years ago almost. Actually, his birthday is in November, so we're a little early celebrating it, but any time is great. and he was educated. He learned clarinet and then saxophone through the WPA, FDR's program that put music teachers in schools in order to put people back to work. And this benefited a lot of schools that didn't have the means to do that. So that's how he basically got into music, learning how to play an instrument. He graduated from high school in 1944 and soon thereafter was drafted into the Navy. And he got into the Navy band. He was stationed for a while at Great Lakes Naval Training Station north of Chicago, where a lot of other jazz musicians had passed through. And this was like really his first exposure to jazz, especially bebop, which was just being formulated at that time. And interestingly, the people he told his younger brother about that he had heard were not Charlie Parker or Lester Young. There were people like Andrew Goon Gardner, who was a local Chicago musician, but that's who he heard because he was going to Chicago to hear music. And so got out of the service in 1946 and shortly thereafter went north to live with his oldest sister, Harriet, in Hartford, Connecticut. And in Hartford, Connecticut, he met a lot of musicians. Horace Silver is from Norwalk, Connecticut, sorry. But he met many other musicians there, and while he was there, applied to Boston Conservatory. And he got into Boston Conservatory and started there in 1947. He was able to go to school. His family had very little. He had 5 siblings, all of which, by the way, became educators, and including Gigi, as I'll tell you about a little later. And so he started at Boston Conservatory as a composition major and finished in 1952. He took the entire year of 1951 off. And we don't know for sure, but we think that he spent a lot of that time in New York City establishing connections for when he would move there after graduation. He graduated in 1952 and shortly thereafter joined the band of Tad Dameron, which is significant because Tad Dameron is sort of the father of modern jazz composition and arranging. Gigi himself, as far as his role models, or musical role models, were concerned, his man was Duke Ellington. That was his foundation, was Duke Ellington. But Tad Dameron was like the forerunner of Gigi Gryce and many other players who were also composers. And in the 1950s, what was happening as bebop kind of died out and hard bop came in, and West Coast and cool and a lot of other different approaches to playing this music came in, a lot of instrumentalists were also excellent composers. And just a few of them are Horace Silver, Gigi, Kenny Dorham, Charles Mingus, John Coltrane. The 1950s was a very rich period for jazz, in my estimation anyway. So Gigi moved to New York in 1954. I'm sorry, he was in Tad Dameron's band. Then, very important, he joined Lionel Hampton's band. And this band also included Clifford Brown, Quincy Jones, Art Farmer, Jimmy Cleveland, and if you read the book, I don't have time this evening to go into all the amazing story of the fall 1953 Lionel Hampton tour of Europe and North Africa, but it was pretty crazy. They just very briefly, they made clandestine recordings in both Paris and Stockholm against Hampton's wishes. And there was actually a big battle between half the band was Young Turks and half the band was the Hampton old timers. And they didn't get along. So there was a lot of stuff happened on this tour. But it was really momentous because these recordings that were made in Paris and Stockholm really put people like Clifford Brown and Art Farmer on the map. So when they came back to New York, the band, Hampton's band, disbanded, but they all went their different ways. Gigi settled in New York, and as I said, he formed a quintet with Art Farmer, who, as instrumentalists, they were very similar, very lyrical players. There was a great team that unfortunately didn't last longer. And I think I'm going to stop right there, and we'll get back to the music. Thank you.
I never get tired of hearing Gigi's story unfold. It's very cool. I've told the elevator pitch version about 100 times by this point, so it's always nice to hear all the details again. Thank you. We're going to continue on. And of course, that first tune, Social Call, that's the one, everybody's been doing that song lately. It's got a lot of popularity, including Samara Joy was my student at SUNY Purchase. She just won 2 more Grammys, 5 Grammys in 3 years in all kinds of categories. So crazy. So that's why I quit teaching. I was like, I'm good. I'm good. Samara's taking it from here. But anyway, Social Call, she recorded Social Call, and so did Veronica Swift, and a lot of other people have been doing it lately. So there's a great resurgence in that song. And so that's another reason why we need to bring more of the songs. And I don't know if I told you, Noal, but actually, recently I put all the songs on a G drive, and I sent it to Samara. This is the second time, but she's busy, so I had to send it a few times. And it said, it's nice that I'm doing these songs, but you need to do these songs from the stage this year for his centennial. So she said, this is amazing, thank you. So we'll see. But that'd be great if that happens, because she's got a big audience. Yeah. So we're going to continue on. And Jon Hendricks wrote those great lyrics to Social Call as well. We're going to continue on with another one of Jon Hendricks' lyrics. A premonition of you. Yep, and this is a tune that has never been recorded as a vocal. These are one of his unpublished lyrics. And yeah, this is A Premonition of You from 1958. Just when I thought my life had ended, and all the dreams I dreamed were through, like some sensation from my imagination, a premonition came of you. When all my hopes had lost their meaning, life held the taste of witch's brew. I felt so tragic and like some mystic magic, a premonition came to me of you. My life is empty, there isn't anyone that I adore, but I have hope now that you'll appear, and that's worth waiting for. though I'm not certain that I'll find you. I'll keep on living till I do. When life had strained me and nothing could sustain me, a premonition came to me of you. My life is tragic. There isn't anyone that I adore, but I have hope now that you'll appear, and that's worth waiting for. Though I'm not certain that I'll find you, I'll keep on living till I do. When life had strained me and nothing could sustain me, a premonition came to me of you, of you. When life had strained me and nothing could sustain me, a premonition came to me of you. Thank you. All right. Now, speaking of jazz musicians that aren't well known enough, how about Newark's own Brandon McCune? Brandon's an incredible musician, and if you like his music, you should definitely follow him. He plays some featured concerts as a leader in this area, and also is a very devoted educator himself. He is in year how many of 24? Year 19 of teaching in middle school, right? No, high school. High school music, right? Music and composition and computer stuff and piano. Yeah, so wonderful. So great for the kids to be able to have such a real incredible musician like you. And we're grateful to have you with us tonight too. Thank you. So the sort of the tune of Gigi's that almost everybody plays in combo in college and everywhere, and it's still heard on lots of bandstands today, is Minority. And we're gonna feature Brandon on that song now. Fantastic. Oh, man.
What time signature was that? 4-4.
All right. For sure. Yep. All right, we're going to continue on with another tune of Gigi's. This is from 1955. This is called The Night That We Met, and the lyrics are by Leo Corday. And this composition has never been recorded, not as an instrumental or a vocal. All right. We're going to do this one. The night that we met, I will never forget. I had come to the dance all alone. I had just lost my love, and I kept thinking of my poor heart that was now all my own. You paced into sight, and the room came alight, and my heart stopped its breaking in two. I forgot my lost love, and I only thought of my poor heart that was now rich with you. I asked you to dance with me, darling. We seemed all alone on the floor. I felt you entrancing me, darling, and my heart kept crying for more. It ended too soon, but we walked 'neath the moon, sharing kisses I'll never forget. Though the years now have passed, we have both made it last, and each night is the night that we met. The night that we met, I will never forget. I'd come to the dance all alone. I had just lost my love, and I kept thinking of my poor heart that was now my own. You paced into sight, and the room came alight, and my heart stopped its breaking in two. I forgot my lost love, and I only thought of my heart that was rich now with you. I asked you to dance with me, darling. We danced all alone on the floor. I felt you entrancing me, darling, and my heart was crying for more. It it ended too soon. But we walked 'neath the moon, sharing kisses I'll never forget. Though the years now have passed, we have both made it last. And each night is the night that we met. And each night is the night that we met. And each night is the night that we met. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to bring Noal back on for the next installment of the life of Gigi Gryce.
Let me just make a few comments about the songs that you've heard already. Minority, which is Gigi Gryce's most recorded song. A whole bunch of people have done that. That actually goes back to the recordings in Paris that I mentioned, the Lionel Hampton tour. That was the first recording of that tune in September of 1953, and it still sounds pretty hip. Social Call goes back to, the first instrumental recording of it was the Art Farmer Quintet in 1954, but the first vocal version of Social Call was by Ernestine Anderson. I don't know if you recall that name. She's no longer with us, but it was actually a Gigi Gryce recording. She did two of his songs at that. That was 1950. That goes back to 1955. A Premonition of You. There's one recording of it, and that CD is no longer in print. I know that because I wrote the liner notes for it, unfortunately. But it's a really interesting song. It has some overtones of Monk in there, you know? These are, Gigi was a great writer. I mean, his songs are wonderful. So in the 1950s, he broke up with Art Farmer, but in 1957 was the peak of his career, really. He did the most in 1957, and that was the year that he teamed up with trumpeter Donald Byrd to form a quintet called the Jazz Laboratory. The Jazz Lab. And they, in 1 year, they recorded no less than 6 LPs for 5 different labels, including Columbia and RCA Victor. The Jazz Lab, which Gigi did most of the writing for, in my estimation, ranks with the Clifford Brown, Max Roach Quintet, Art Blakey's Jazz Messengers, the Horace Silver Quintet, as one of the many groups of the 1950s that worked a lot. In other words, we don't have so many groups like that anymore that would work all the time. These groups worked for quite a while, and there's a good reason for that, because the material that they performed was a little different. Like I said, they were original compositions that were very attractive. 1957, he got a lot of attention. The Jazz Lab appeared at the Randall's Island Festival and the Newport Jazz Festival. And it looked, you know, on paper like Gigi's career was about to take off. But things really died down in 1958, and he doesn't do that much recording. But there's one very interesting album that, let me go back to 57 again. I should say that I want to make the point that despite the fact that he wasn't very well known, he was very much in the thick of things. He was part and parcel of the Oscar Pettiford Orchestra, which was only around for a couple of years, but that was a really unique band with a trumpet section, with a brass section made up of 2 trumpets, trombone, and 2 French horns. It also had a harp player, and Oscar played electrified cello. It had some really interesting sounds coming out of that band. And Gigi, Lucky Thompson, Benny Golson, and Ernie Wilkins all wrote for that band. It was just an amazing band. He was also, in 1956, he was also part of the Teddy Charles Tentet, as was Art Farmer. And the Teddy Charles Tentet is even to this day, that recording, they made a recording for Atlantic Records, is considered one of the most innovative recordings of the 1950s. Gigi was a part of it. In 1958, he made a record for the Metro Jazz label. It was just a quartet record. The trio backing him was pretty good. Hank Jones, Milt Hinton, and O.C. Johnson. And Gigi, on several of the tracks, overdubbed himself. He played on this album, he played alto, tenor, and baritone saxophone, clarinet, flute, and piccolo. And he overdubbed, creating on some of the tracks like a sax section, all with him playing. That's a very rare record. I don't think it's in print anymore. But he also did all the writing for Rich versus Roach. That was Buddy Rich and Max Roach. Gigi did all the writing for That's an Interesting Record, with one band in one stereo channel and the other band in the other stereo channel. But he didn't really do that much recording. In 1959, there's something of an upsurge. He put together a band he called the Orktet. And at this point, he had teamed up with trumpeter Richard Williams. And he was probably the trumpeter most different from Gigi's playing. Richard Williams was very much, very in your face. Gigi was not so much that way. His playing was lyrical. It was an interesting combination. He also added to this band vibraphone in the person of Eddie Costa. And that band, unfortunately, the quintet without Costa made 3 albums for the New Jazz label. But the one with Eddie Costa, the most interesting one, there's only one album called Reminiscent. And the tune that Alexis just sang, that's the Reminiscent. They did that tune on that album. And then the last recording we have of Gigi Gryce is 1961. And after that, he's not heard from again. And I'm going to stop there, and I'll finish up with the story later.
The salacious details. These lyrics. Oh, this is the one with lyrics, also music and lyrics by Gigi Gryce. And there was a vocal version also recorded by Ernestine Anderson, who I was just telling Brandon was actually the first jazz singer I ever heard on my own. I got her tape from the public library when I was in 9th grade, and that's the first time I heard jazz for myself. Without my grandmother used to play it on play Tony Bennett and everything, but got to hear Ernestine myself. So okay, great. I I never knew I could love you the way I do. For my heart stands still whenever you are near. I'm thrilled. My love for you is a love that is deep and true. Never let us part. You satisfy my lonely heart. The touch of your lips whenever we kiss holds me under the spell of your charms. How can I escape this moment of bliss that entangles me in your arms? It's plain to see there is no other one for me. You're my star above. You'll always be the one I love. Touch of your lips whenever we kiss holds me under the spell of your charms. How can I escape this feeling of bliss that entangles me in your arms? It's plain to see there is no other one for me. You're my star above. You'll always be the one I love. Thank you. All right, we're gonna bring Noal up for the final chapter of the Gigi Gryce story, and then we've got one more for you.
As I said, in 1961, after 1961, we don't hear much from Gigi anymore. In fact, nothing. In the 1950s, 1955 and 1958, he established two publishing companies. One was affiliated with BMI and one was affiliated with ASCAP. And these publishing companies were unique in the sense that he had composers, not just himself, but he had no less than 78 composers, most of which were African American. And so he was publishing not just his own music, but the music of and the people. I can't go through all the names, but it was like the cream of New York City musicians. And even Langston Hughes was one. Bill Lee, Spike Lee's father, had tunes in Gigi's publishing companies. Trouble is, the record companies didn't like this. And what was happening was musicians, two things were happening. One was the record companies were just not paying royalties. And so that would have forced Gigi to take legal action, which he didn't have the wherewithal to do. The other thing they were doing was telling musicians, if you want your tunes published by our record company, they can't, if you want your tune recorded by our record company, it can't be published by Gigi's companies. So the musicians were starting to take their music out of Gigi's publishing companies. So this noble effort at, trying to ensure that composers were getting what they deserved didn't work out. And he just kind of went into a tailspin. And I because the hour is running late, I'm not going to go further into that. I recommend reading it in the book. It's the second to the last chapter. Now, but that wasn't the end of Gigi Gryce, because in 1963, he resurfaces and applies to the New York City Board of Education to become a teacher, and starts out as a substitute teacher. But he doesn't do it under the name Gigi Gryce. He had converted to Islam early on in his life, and he took his Muslim name, Bashir Qasim. So after 1963, there's no more Gigi Gryce, essentially. 63, yeah. There's no more Gigi Gryce, and he lived for another 20 years. So after that, he's Bashir Qasim, and nobody knew that. And so he worked for the Board of Education as a teacher, first as a substitute, then as a full-time teacher for 20 years. He died in 1983 at the age of 57. He had dropped out of music at the age of 37. Another 20 years as a teacher. He left his family, remarried, and again, everything was Bashir Qasim. Nobody knew this, and when I visited the school, nobody just, I'm coming, yeah, right, I did not mention that. A school in New York City, in the Bronx, is named after him. It's called the Gigi Gryce, it was called the Gigi Gryce Bashir Qasim School. Now it's called something else that I don't understand at all, but that was done because he had acquired such a wonderful reputation as a teacher. The kids just looked up to him, and he could run an assembly, and maintain quiet. And he really established an amazing reputation among parents, the kids, and his fellow teachers. But when I went there to the school, which is in the South Bronx, by the way, Morrisania section, nobody knew who Gigi Gryce was, and they could have cared less. It's really kind of a sad story. He died in 1983. He had become ill and went back to Pensacola, actually, and died there. He actually died in one of his sister's homes, and is buried there. No musicians came to his funeral. Nobody knew about it. Real sad thing, but he left quite a mark. By the way, he had also gotten a master's in educational administration from Fordham University while he was teaching, and was working towards a PhD when he died. So that's basically the end of the Gigi Gryce story. I'm sorry, there's a lot more I could say, but we're running out of time. So I'm going to stop right there. The book, this is a print on demand book. It's always in print. You can get it from Amazon. You can get it from Barnes & Noble, and you can probably get it from your local bookstore. So if you want the full story, over 450 pages. And there's a flyer. We have flyers out there. If you want more information about the book, pick up a flyer. So that's about it. It's been a pleasure for me to share the stage with these two wonderful musicians, and I appreciate all of you coming out. Thank you very much.
All right, we're going to close the night off with another one of Gigi's more famous tunes. This was the lyrics by John Hendricks, Music in the Air. Yep. And the group Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross did this song. And John also has a great version on one of his albums, too. This is called Wildwood when it's an instrumental, or Music in the Air. And, I wanted to say something. We're going to be doing this a couple more times, so tell your friends. We're going to do it at the National Arts Club in New York City on March 12th, and again at the Bronx Music Hall on May 10th. So I'm really looking forward to those. That'll be a lot of fun. And I'll remember what else I was going to say before it's over. But okay, here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Music in the air can be heard wherever you go. Every tweet of a bee can conceivably be a song you know. Music in the air can be heard all over the town. Every tweet of a bird is an often unheard melodic sound. Old Mother Nature wrote a symphony tune that she plays in a number of ways, and the whole world is a wonderful place that makes you so delighted to face that music in the air. If there's worry and care, you will never feel low, just as long as you know there's music in the air. Tree can conceivably be a song you know. It's music in the air, can be heard all over the town. Every tweet of a bird has an often unheard melodic sound. Oh, Old Mother Mother Nature wrote a symphony tune that she plays in a number of ways, and the whole world is a wonderful place that makes you so delighted to face that music in the air. It relieves your worry and care. You will never feel low just as long as you know there's music in the air. Thank you so much. Let's hear it for Brandon McCune. Thank you so much to Patty and Brian here at the library. And thank you to Noal Cohen for his wonderful speech. And I would love for you all to be on my mailing list. Paul is going to be over on the side there taking email addresses. The Wayne Public Library also has some of my CDs that you can check out. Isn't that cool? And so we're just really grateful to be here. Thank you so much and have a wonderful night. Music in the air can be heard wherever you go. Every tweet of me can conceivably be a song you know. Music in the air can be heard all over the town. Every tweet of a bird is an often unheard melodic sound. Old Mother Nature wrote a symphony tune that she plays in a number of ways, and the whole world is a wonderful place that makes you so delighted to face that music in the air. If there's worry and care, you will never feel low just as long as you know there's music in the air.